3:41 a.m., the Strait of Hormuz, USS Nitze, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, 16 nautical miles into the narrowest navigable corridor on Earth. Two Noor anti-ship missiles just launched from the northern Iranian coastline and locked onto her. Flight time to impact, 78 seconds. The crew had been awake for 19 hours. Welcome to Navy Beacon, where we break down the operations that define sea power. Before we talk about the missiles, we need to talk about the geography. Because the Strait of Hormuz is not just a body of water, it is a choke point, the single most consequential choke point on the planet. Every day, roughly 20% of the world's oil supply moves through this passage. Tankers from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, the UAE, and Iran itself transit a navigable channel that is, at its narrowest point, only 21 nautical miles wide. That sounds like a lot until you consider that a loaded supertanker needs several miles to stop. A carrier strike group needs even more room to maneuver, and the Iranian coastline dominates the entire northern edge of the passage from end to end. Any ship transiting the strait westbound toward the Persian Gulf spends between 40 and 60 minutes within comfortable anti-ship missile range of Iranian shore positions. Every transit, every time, USS Nitze had been transiting this corridor on a pre-coordinated westbound transit, scheduled, logged with 5th Fleet, and tracked by Iranian coastal observation posts from the moment she entered the strait's eastern approach. She was the standard Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, 509 feet long, displacing 9,500 tons fully loaded, carrying 96 vertical launch system cells, a 5-inch deck gun, 2 Phalanx CIWS mounts, and an Aegis combat system that represented the most sophisticated shipboard air defense available to any navy in the world. She was also predictable. The IRGC Coastal Defense Battery, positioned on the elevated terrain above the fishing village of Kuwait, had been watching USS Nitze and every other U.S. Navy vessel that transited the strait for 11 months. The battery's intelligence section had logged 47 U.S. Navy transits in that period. They had noted the typical transit speeds, the preferred routes through the central channel, the times of day or night when ships moved through. They had built a pattern-of-life picture that any intelligence professional would recognize as thorough. They had identified a specific geographic position in the central channel, a point where the waterway narrowed and where a westbound ship had limited maneuvering room, where their Noor missiles would have the best engagement geometry. USS Nitze reached that position at 3:40:53 a.m. The battery commander gave the order at 3:40:56 a.m. The fire control radar activated. The launcher rails rotated. The first missile ignited. 3 seconds from activation to launch. USS Nitze's AN/SLQ-32 electronic warfare suite detected the fire control radar at 3:41:03 a.m., 7 seconds after the radar activated. The automatic classification was immediate. Iranian coastal defense radar, active targeting mode, bearing 015. The alarm reached the tactical action officer's station in the Combat Information Center, simultaneously with the detection. Lieutenant Commander Rafael Ortiz had been on watch for 3 hours. He was a 6-year surface warfare officer with 2 previous Gulf deployments. He had run this exact drill, missile warning in the strait, a minimum of 30 times in simulators and exercises. He processed the SLQ-32 alert in 1 second. He had the fire control solution being developed by the AN/SPY-1D in the second. He called General Quarters in the 3rd second. The 1MC announcement hit every compartment of the ship simultaneously. General Quarters, General Quarters. All hands man your battle stations. Missile warning, this is not a drill. 211 sailors moved to their battle stations. Time to impact, 65 seconds. The AN/SPY-1D radar had acquired both inbound contacts within 4 seconds of the alarm. The missiles were tracking at sea level, between 5 and 7 meters above the Gulf surface, flying on a direct intercept vector toward USS Nitze at high subsonic speed. The radar signature was consistent with Noor anti-ship cruise missiles, a small, fast-moving contact flying an extremely low flight profile with an active radar seeker. Batteries free, Ortiz said. Engage all inbound contacts with SM-2. The Mark 41 vertical launch system hatches opened on the forward deck. The first standard Missile 2 Block 3B ejected from its cell on a column of pressurized gas, the booster igniting the instant it cleared the launcher. The second missile followed 4 seconds later. 2 SM-2s climbing at Mach 3.5 toward 2 incoming Noors. Time to impact, 51 seconds. The Noor anti-ship missile has been Iran's primary coastal defense anti-ship weapon for 2 decades. It is not a weapon that American surface warfare officers underestimate. The missile is a reverse-engineered and significantly upgraded copy of the Chinese C-802. Iran obtained the original C-802 design in the 1990s and spent years improving it, extending the range from 120 kilometers to approximately 170 kilometers, improving the guidance system, and refining the terminal phase seeker to make it more resistant to electronic countermeasures. The Noor's terminal seeker is an active radar homing system. What that means in practical terms is that the missile flies most of its route guided by a navigation system, and then, in the final approach phase, switches on its own onboard radar, acquires the target independently, and homes on it. At that point, even if the ship's electronic warfare system successfully jams the external fire control signal, the missile does not care. It has already found its target. It is flying itself. The terminal phase begins at approximately 15 to 20 kilometers from the target. The terminal guidance radar was already hot on both incoming missiles. The first SM-2 intercepted the lead Noor at 11 nautical miles from USS Nitze. The geometry was clean. The radar track had been strong throughout the approach. The fire control solution was accurate, and the SM-2's guidance delivered the warhead to within effective proximity fuse range. The warhead detonated, and the fragmentation pattern tore through the Noor's airframe at closing speed. The missile broke apart and fell into the Gulf. Its undetonated warhead tumbled behind it and hit the water without detonating. 1 down. The second SM-2 had a problem that none of the post-engagement briefs described as obvious from the inside. The second Noor, flying on a track that ran slightly closer to the Gulf surface than the first, was generating an intermittent radar return as the AN/SPY-1D surface search mode interacted with the sea-clutter rising from the Strait's wave environment at night. The clutter, electromagnetic noise generated by radar energy reflecting off wave faces, was masking the missile's return intermittently, not continuously. The track existed. It dropped. It reacquired. It dropped again. The fire control solution fed to the second SM-2 was accurate to within 40 meters. The average position error accumulated from the intermittent track data during the missile's approach window. 40 meters sounds precise. Against a target moving at Mach 0.9, 40 meters is the difference between a proximity kill and a proximity miss. The SM-2 detonated. The proximity fuse triggered at the calculated range. The fragmentation warhead exploded in a sphere of high-velocity metal fragments. The Noor was 42 meters from the center of that sphere. 42 meters placed the missile just outside the reliable fragmentation kill radius. The Noor took hits. Its left wing was struck by at least 3 fragments, visible in the recovered debris field assessment. Its forward fuselage took 2 additional fragment strikes. The radar seeker dome sustained damage that degraded its active homing signal, but the warhead did not detonate. The propulsion system continued. The missile flew on. It had switched to memory guidance, no longer actively homing on radar, now flying the last computed bearing toward USS Nitze's projected position. Memory guidance does not account for the target having maneuvered. Memory guidance follows a straight line. USS Nitze had been maneuvering throughout the engagement. Sharp turns to increase the angular rate and complicate the intercept geometry. The memory guidance was flying toward where the fire control solution said USS Nitze would be. Not where she was, but she was close. 22 seconds to impact. The forward Phalanx, close-in weapon system aboard USS Nitze, is a system that the ship's crew calls the last resort. That description is accurate, and the crew knows it. When the Phalanx engages an incoming threat, it means every other layer of defense has either failed or been exhausted. The Phalanx is the final barrier between a warship and whatever is coming. The system is autonomous. It has its own radar, its own tracking computer, its own fire control solution. It does not wait for human input. When it detects an incoming threat within its engagement envelope, it fires. The forward Phalanx had been tracking the second Noor throughout the SM-2 engagement. At 2,400 meters range, approximately 4 seconds of flight time for the incoming missile, the system's fire control computer calculated that the SM-2 had not achieved a kill and transitioned to autonomous engagement mode. The 20mm Gatling cannon spun up to its operating speed, 4,500 rounds per minute, in under 1 second. The targeting solution was calculated. The first burst fired. 1.4 seconds. 105 rounds. A stream of tungsten penetrators filling the airspace ahead of the gun mount at the calculated intercept point. The Noor flew into the burst. Multiple rounds struck the missile's airframe. The left wing, already damaged by the SM-2 fragmentation, was struck again, causing it to partially separate. The fuselage took additional hits. The propulsion system received a penetrating round through the engine casing. The engine died. The missile was no longer flying, it was falling. A ballistic trajectory, momentum carrying it forward, gravity pulling it down toward the Gulf surface. The aim point, the place the missile would have impacted USS Nitze's hull if it had continued powered flight, shifted. The Noor struck the water 71 meters off USS Nitze's port bow. The warhead detonated on water impact. A 165-kilogram semi-armor-piercing warhead detonating 71 meters from a steel warship in the water does several things at once. The primary explosive effect creates a pressure pulse that propagates through the water at the speed of sound, approximately 1,500 meters per second, and reaches the ship's hull in under 1/10 of a second. The pressure wave flexes the hull plating inward momentarily. Every system attached to the hull, every pipe, cable, bracket, and piece of equipment, experiences the shock simultaneously. Above the water, the blast overpressure wave travels at the speed of sound through air, slower than water, but still fast. The blast front hit USS Nitze's port side bridge windows in under a quarter second. The windows, reinforced glass, rated for significant blast overpressure, shattered inward. Glass fragments traveled at high speed across the bridge interior. 3 sailors on the bridge were cut by glass. The commanding officer, Commander Patricia Walsh, took a 2-centimeter fragment cut across her left forearm. She did not move from her position at the bridge console. The shock that transmitted through the hull knocked 6 sailors off their feet throughout the ship. In the Combat Information Center, 2 standing operators grabbed their consoles to stay upright. One did not make it and went down, impacting the deck hard enough to split his chin and sustain a mild concussion. The forward phalanx mount took fragmentation from the warhead detonation. A hydraulic actuator line was severed by a fragment strike on the mount's external casing. The mount lost hydraulic pressure and went offline. The system's automatic fault detection logged the failure and reported to the damage control console. USS Nitze had 1 functional phalanx. She had 2 working SM-2 fire control channels. Her propulsion was intact. Her primary radar was intact. Her communications were intact. She was damaged. She was operational. In Bahrain, the flash message from USS Nitze arrived at NAVCENT, Naval Forces Central Command, at 3:42:11 a.m. 68 seconds after the launch. The message was automated, transmitted by the ship's communication system from the engagement data. Missiles fired, 2 inbound, 1 defeated, SM-2, 1 proximity. Detonation 71 meters, port bow. Phalanx mount forward offline. 3, WIA bridge. Ship operational. Request, strike authorization. Admiral Thomas Crane was the 5th Fleet Commander. His aide woke him at 3:43 a.m. He was in the command center at 3:47 a.m. The targeting package for the Kuwastak battery was already on the strike coordination screen. It had been updated 6 days prior. The most recent satellite imagery pass had confirmed the battery's infrastructure. 4 Noor launcher rails on hardened concrete pads, a command and control building, an underground missile storage bunker, a mobile fire control radar positioned on a wheeled vehicle behind the main structure, and 2 diesel generator facilities that powered the installation's electronics. The radar vehicle would be gone. The crew had certainly followed standard IRGC dispersal procedure. Within 90 seconds of the launch, the mobile radar truck would have been off the pad and onto the coastal road network. The reload vehicles would be moving, but the infrastructure, the concrete pads, the bunker, the command building, the power facilities, none of that moved. Authorization request went to the National Security Council watch officer at 3:48 a.m. The response returned at 4:01 a.m. 13 minutes. In those 13 minutes, the battery crew had executed their dispersal plan. They had rehearsed it. They had a specific sequence: radar vehicle first, then reload vehicles, then crew personnel vehicles. Each had a pre-planned route to a dispersal area. The total dispersal window from launch to full crew dispersion was assessed at 16 minutes. The authorization had come in 13. Two of the four launcher vehicles had not yet departed the pad when the authorization came through. Two FA-18E Super Hornets, Falcon 11 and Falcon 12, had been on Alert 5 at their ready stations on USS Abraham Lincoln's flight deck since 2 a.m. Alert 5 means engines capable of starting in 5 minutes, pilots in ready room, aircraft fully armed. They launched at 4:03 a.m., 2 minutes after authorization, because the actual startup to launch sequence for an Alert 5 aircraft on a carrier deck runs closer to 3 minutes than 5 when the crew is motivated. Flight time from Lincoln's position in the Gulf of Oman to the Kuhastak installation on the Iranian coast, 7 minutes at the transit profile. They were over the target at 4:10 a.m. Falcon 11 carried two AGM-88E AARGM, Advanced Anti-Radiation Guided Missiles, the current generation variant that can prosecute a radar target even after the radar shuts down by using stored position data and a terminal phase millimeter wave seeker. The AARGM does not need the radar to still be transmitting when it arrives. Against a battery that has gone to emissions control, the AARGM is still effective. Falcon 11 also carried two GBU-31 JDAM 2,000-pound bombs, GPS-guided, accurate to within 3 meters of the program coordinate, capable of defeating hardened concrete structures. Falcon 12 carried 4 GBU-38 500-pound JDAM bombs and two AGM-65 Maverick missiles for any mobile targets of opportunity that appeared on the FLIR camera during the run. The AARGM launched first. It did not need the radar to be active. The system's memory held the last known emission position, and the terminal millimeter wave seeker would identify the antenna mount on final approach. The missile flew the profile autonomously and impacted the concrete antenna mount base, destroying it and severing the underground cable connections to the command building. The command building was the first JDAM target. Falcon 11's first 2,000-pound bomb struck the roof at 4:09:14 a.m. The building was reinforced concrete, single-story, standard IRGC coastal defense construction. A 2,000-pound JDAM detonating on a direct roof impact is not a near miss. The building ceased to exist as a functional structure. The second 2,000-pound bomb went to the underground missile storage bunker. The access hatch, an armored steel door, was the target point. The bomb struck the hatch, drove it inward, and the overpressure inside the bunker reached the stored Noor missile propellant. The secondary explosion vented through every external access point and cracked the bunker's concrete ceiling. The secondary fire burned for 6 hours. Falcon 12's smaller bombs hit the launcher pads and the two vehicles that had not yet departed. Both vehicles were destroyed. The launcher rail hardpoints on 2 of the 4 pads were left as slag. The generator facilities took direct hits from the remaining 2 bombs. No power, no electronics, no functional installation. The Maverick time over target, 5 minutes and 50 seconds. At 4:16 a.m., Falcon 11 and Falcon 12 egressed at low altitude over the Gulf of Oman and turned south toward Lincoln. The Kuhastak installation was burning on 3 separate fire points visible from 30 nautical miles. USS Nitze limped west through the strait at reduced speed, her bridge windows covered with emergency plastic sheeting, her damage control teams assessing the forward phalanx and the hull shock effects. She met a salvage tug at the strait's western exit at 5 a.m. and transited south to Bahrain at 12 knots. She entered Bahrain naval support activity at 10:22 a.m. The forward phalanx hydraulic line was repaired in 4 days. A replacement part was on the next logistics flight from Bahrain. The bridge glass replacement took 3 additional days. Hull survey found no structural damage below the waterline, though 2 frames in the forward section showed microscopic stress fractures that were monitored over the next 3 months without progression. USS Nitze returned to operational status 11 days after the engagement. The 3 sailors injured by bridge glass, including Commander Walsh's forearm wound, were treated and returned to duty within 72 hours. The sailor who fell in CIC and hit his chin received 5 stitches and was evaluated for concussion. He was cleared for full duty within a week. The after-action review was completed 3 weeks later. Its findings were distributed to the entire 5th Fleet surface warfare community. Finding 1 addressed the pattern problem. The Kuhastak battery had been watching U.S. Navy Strait transits for 11 months. The timing of USS Nitze's transit, 3:40 a.m., through the center of the established corridor, was within 3 minutes of the optimal intercept window the battery had identified through pattern-of-life analysis of 47 previous transits. The transit schedule had been predictable. The review did not soften this conclusion. It stated directly that the Kuwait battery's targeting solution had been enabled by U.S. Navy operational predictability that exceeded acceptable standards for a high-threat environment. Finding 2 addressed the SM-2 miss. The sea-clutter masking problem on the second Noor was not a new issue. It had appeared in training assessments and an analysis of previous engagements. The software calibration update that would improve the AN/SPY-1D's clutter suppression specifically for the Strait of Hormuz's radar environment had been developed, approved, and placed in a deployment queue. It had not yet reached the fleet when Nitze transited. The update was deployed to all Gulf area ships within 6 weeks of the engagement. Finding 3 addressed the Phalanx performance. The system had done exactly what it was designed to do. It had hit the missile and it had deflected the impact point from a hull strike to a near miss. The review did not criticize the Phalanx. It noted that the system had been operating at the absolute edge of its design envelope, engaging a large warhead cruise missile at under 2,500 meters, and that the outcome had depended on the missile sustaining enough physical damage to alter its trajectory. A less damaged Noor, one that had not already taken SM-2 fragmentation hits, would have been a harder shot for the Phalanx. The SM-2 hit, even though it had not achieved a kill, had been the enabling condition for the Phalanx's success. Finding 4 addressed the 13-minute authorization window. The review noted, for the 3rd time in 2 years, that the 13 to 15-minute window from strike request to authorization consistently allowed mobile elements of attacking batteries to disperse before aircraft arrived. The mobile radar truck had departed before the strike began. The reload vehicles were on the road. The fixed infrastructure was destroyed. The mobile capability was intact. The operational capability, trained crew, mobile radar, reload missiles, was somewhere in southern Iran. It would deploy again. The review recommended that pre-authorization for retaliatory strikes against a defined list of Iranian coastal military installations be granted in standing authority to Fifth Fleet, triggered by a confirmed attack on a U.S. vessel, without requiring individual National Security Council approval for each event. The recommendation was under review by the National Security Council. As of the review's distribution date, it had not been approved. Iran's official statement, released at 11 a.m. through IRNA, described the incident as a defensive response to what it characterized as an American violation of Iranian maritime security zones. No acknowledgement of casualties. No acknowledgement of the destroyed installation. The U.S. State Department statement was direct. USS Nitze had been attacked without provocation while transiting internationally recognized waters. The United States had responded proportionally. All personnel were safe. The ship was operational. The Strait of Hormuz remained open. Commercial traffic paused briefly and resumed by midday. But the mobile elements of the Kuwait battery, the radar truck, the reload crews, the firing teams who had pressed the launch sequence and then driven away in the dark, those were free and operational. They were planning. The fixed infrastructure was gone. They would need new facilities, new positions, new pre-surveyed coordinates. And they had learned something from the engagement that the after-action review also noted. Their deceptive calibration sweeps had worked. The battery had gotten its shot off. The missile had survived an SM-2 near miss. The second missile had come to within 71 meters of a destroyer hull. Next time, with better technique, that number might be smaller. Stay vigilant, stay informed. This is Navy Beacon, and we'll see you in the next one.